In the quiet stillness of a suburban evening, when the lights in every window start to dim, there's a house where love used to live brightly. Now that same house echoes with silence. The kind of silence that grows after too many arguments, too many unspoken words, and too many nights sleeping with backs turned to each other. This is the story of Emma and David, a couple standing on the edge of divorce, even though neither of them truly wants to let go. But sometimes love doesn't disappear all at once. Sometimes it fades quietly, like a flame no one bothered to protect. Emma sits alone at the kitchen table, staring at the divorce papers lying in front of her. She touches the corner of the document, her fingers trembling. She whispers to herself, "How did we get here?" She remembers the early days, the laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams they built together. But somewhere along the way, work replaced conversations, frustration replaced affection, and silence replaced everything else. She hears David's footsteps coming home, slow and heavy, like a man preparing for a battle he never wanted to fight. He walks past her without meeting her eyes, and she feels that familiar sting in her chest, a pain she's grown used to, but never learned to accept. David goes to the living room, drops his keys on the table, and rubs his face with both hands. He's exhausted emotionally more than physically. He doesn't hate Emma. In fact, he loves her more deeply than he can admit. But lately, every small disagreement turns into a storm, and every conversation becomes a minefield. He doesn't know how to fix it. He doesn't even know where the first crack began. All he knows is that the woman he loves is slipping away from him, and he feels powerless to stop it. Later that night, Emma walks into the living room, holding the divorce papers. Her voice shakes as she says, "We can't keep living like this." David looks up at her, his eyes tired and full of confusion. For the first time in months, he doesn't respond with anger. Instead, he sighs a long, painful release of everything he's been carrying. "I don't want to fight anymore, Emma," he says softly. She sits down across from him, leaving a small but noticeable distance between them. The silence stretches out, thick and uncomfortable. But it's not the usual cold silence. This time, it's filled with questions neither of them knows how to ask. Emma finally breaks the tension. "Do you ever think about, US? About what we used to be?" David nods slowly. "Every day," he admits. She looks surprised, almost as if she didn't expect him to care at all. "Then why?" she whispers. "Does it feel like we're strangers?" David looks down at his hands. "Because somewhere along the way, I forgot how to talk to you without feeling like I'm doing something wrong." Emma's eyes soften, her voice trembling. "And somewhere along the way, I forgot how to listen without expecting the worst." For the first time in a long time, they aren't blaming each other. They're simply telling the truth, the raw, unfiltered truth that hurts but heals at the same time. The next day, instead of the usual cold routine, Emma leaves a cup of coffee on the counter for David before he wakes up, just like she used to. David pauses when he sees it, staring at the cup as if it's a relic from a past life. When Emma walks by, he quietly says, "Thank you." She nods. It's small, almost insignificant, but small things are how love begins. And how love returns. Later that afternoon, they sit in the living room, talking, not arguing, for the first time in months. Emma tells him about the loneliness she felt even when he was right beside her. David tells her about the pressure he carried from work, the fear of disappointing her, and the shame of not being enough. There are tears, there are long pauses, and there are moments when their voices break. But they keep talking. And every word becomes a step away from divorce, and a step back toward each other. That evening, David suggests, "Maybe we can try counseling, together." Emma hesitates, then nods. "Maybe we should. Maybe we owe ourselves that chance." They both know counseling won't magically fix everything. But it's a sign, an important one, that neither of them is ready to give up. That night, they sit on opposite sides of the couch, not touching but closer than before. Close enough to feel hope returning. Weeks pass. Counseling is difficult, emotional, and sometimes painful. They confront old wounds, misunderstandings, and the resentment that built up silently over time. Emma learns that David's distance wasn't a lack of love, it's fear and stress he never knew how to express. David learns that Emma's anger wasn't rejection. It was a desperate cry for connection. Session after session, they begin to see each other again, not as opponents but as partners. One rainy evening after a particularly emotional counseling session, they sit in the car in silence. Emma wipes her tears and David reaches out slowly, cautiously, placing his hand over hers. She looks at him, surprised by the gentleness she hasn't felt in so long. "Emma," he whispers, "I still choose you." Even after everything, her lips tremble as she answers, "I never stopped choosing you." When they return home, Emma opens the drawer where the divorce papers are kept. She takes them out, looks at David, and quietly tears the pages in half. The sound of paper ripping is soft, almost delicate, but to them it feels like thunder, like a storm finally breaking. Months later, their house feels different, warmer, brighter, not perfect, because no relationship is but alive. They cook together again, they talk again, they laugh again. One afternoon, as they sit on the porch watching the sunset, David wraps his arm around her. She rests her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, she feels safe. And just when everything seems peaceful, David quietly says, "Thank you for not giving up on us." Emma smiles softly. "Thank you for fighting for us." Their hands intertwine naturally, effortlessly, as if they were made to fit together. In the end, their marriage didn't survive because they were perfect. It survived because they chose to stay, to listen, to act with love, even when love felt hard. Sometimes, the relationships most worth saving are the ones that break us open, just so they can rebuild us stronger. And this is not a story about divorce. It is a story about two people who rediscovered each other when everyone else thought it was already over.